There is an asteroid heading towards Earth. Right now, it is at a 1.5% chance of hitting. It is big, but it's not, a planetary killer. The size that, should it actually impact Earth, it would destroy a city.
So the name 2024 YR4, that tells us that, well, it was discovered in 2024. Y means it was discovered in the last 2 weeks of the year. And R4 means that they've discovered about 100 asteroids before that. I expect that what's going to happen is that we're going to see that we've seen basically the probability slowly rise over time. And this is a pattern we've seen in the past. What happens is you get a very large error section, and as it shrinks down, the Earth becomes a bigger and bigger part of that fuzzy error, or where it could arrive. But eventually, it shrinks down and the Earth is suddenly outside. So the probability goes up, 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 and then suddenly drops to zero very quickly.
I would like to show you what Scott said about the size of the asteroid, because not even that is fully known.
It was unfortunately discovered too late to get any radar observations in on it, so we don't have a really good constraint on the size of the object. What we're doing is looking at the brightness and saying, based upon its estimated surface reflectivity, albedo, it could be anywhere from 40 to 90 meters across, which, that's a factor of 2, but because it's a volume, it's squared, and because we don't know the density, this object could be anywhere from, say, 25,000 tons to 1,000,000 tons of mass.
Yikes. 1,000,000 tons of anything is usually bad news. That's a recipe for disaster.
We know based upon the timing that it would have to hit along this very narrow strip of the Earth. If it lands in the ocean, that's probably not such a big deal. If it lands in a relatively uninhabited part of the world, probably not a big deal.
So there's DART that I mentioned earlier. Changing the orbit of the asteroid becomes very complicated on international levels because, as Scott mentions, if it was looking to impact somewhere over India, and India then starts trying to push it east to maybe get it off of Earth, well, it's going to go over China, and they're obviously not going to be too thrilled about that, and if it doesn't fully get off Earth and impacts China, well, that's going to be a local disaster for China and also an economic disaster for the rest of the world, so it just becomes a very tricky, complicated issue. While we can change the orbit of these asteroids with DART, it becomes very difficult to assess how and where. It gets very complicated. Scott then goes on to mention that while this is the highest probability of an impact, 2032, it's not the only one. He mentions that it could miss us, narrowly miss us, and then still come back around and impact us at a later date.